out for materials, you'll need some paints of your choice, ruler, hot glue gun, pair of scissors, and also a pencil. The material is balsa wood, which is soft enough like foam, meaning it doesn't need professional tools to cut it. I wanted straight edges, so instead of using scissors, I used a paper knife like that. The balsa wood is already 3 inches wide, and for the length I'm also making it 3 inches. Marking it on both sides. Afterwards, I'm going to connect it with a straight line so that I know that the edges won't be crooked. As you see, after I'm done with that, it's a 3x3 perfect square. Adding onto it, I'm going to mark 6 inches, which makes the total rectangle 9 inches. When I'm done with that, I'm taking my paper knife and just cutting it down the lines I made. I suggest not to drag it across because it actually chips the wood itself. I just stab it into it, and I also suggest measuring it on both sides so it can cut from either end. Afterwards, there's going to be some rough spots, but I just use my fingers and pick it off. I just lightly scrape the top and then stab off the bottom, and I also use my knife to take away the leftover residue. See, now you have a 6-inch rectangle and a 3x3 square. You'll need 2 of those to end with, and also 2 of the long boards to end with for both sides of the supporting shelves. And on your 3x3 square, you're going to mark 1.5 inches on all 4 sides of the square. And when you're done, you're going to connect the lines as usual. But this time, after we've made a grid, we're only cutting off 1 square in total. And you want to save the little squares because they do have some use for later. Now I have some sort of L-shaped figure. And you're going to do the same on the rectangle. Mark 4.5 inches down on both sides and connect the line. Afterwards, mark 1.5 inches and also draw a line from the center. And when you're finished measuring, just cut off the square like we did before and repeat on the remaining 2 pieces. And after that, as desired, just take off the extra residue. And now you've made a ladder effect. If you piece them both together, you just made the size of your shelf. Now take the bottom pieces of each and decide how wide you want your overall shelf to be. I measure mine to be 9 inches, and I'll just take another piece of balsa wood. Because it only fills up half of the length of the actual shelf, you're going to need 2 pieces to piece that together. Now the base of the shelf is complete. Using a thinner piece of wood, you're going to measure 1/2 inch longer than the length of the base. And when you're finished with that, make either 4 of them for the ladder effect or 8 of them to look like stairs. And now temporarily propping, you're going to make the back of the shelf itself. So piecing together, just mark where it is. You don't need to measure. And now when you're finished, lay down all your pieces on the sides that you would like to be painted and just paint them. I painted them all white. And after they're all finished drying, you can start piecing things together. I start off with the base pieces. I only put a little glue in the front so that it won't dry too quickly on me. And after that part dry, I just open the crack a little bit and seal it off. And while that piece dried, I glued the sides of the shelf and then sealed off more with hot glue. Now piecing together the sides of the shelf, this is where it adds the extra 1/2 inch because you're actually gluing on the sides of the base and not the top. Now I'm adding on the back of the shelf. I'm only putting glue on the bottom because if you put on all 3, you could easily mess up, or it could just dry before you even get it on. But instead, after it's on, I sealed off the sides, added on the second piece, doing the same thing. After I'm done, just sealed it, running it over with hot glue. Now applying the shelves, as I mentioned earlier, I didn't add the 1/2 inch onto the length of my shelves, so they're a bit short. So using these little squares add extra support. I do recommend doing this even though your shelf is long enough, because it does add support and some width to the sides. And now my too short piece of board won't fall off. You don't actually have to make the supporting sides a perfect square as long as it sticks to the sides and adds width. Now, adding on the sides of the shelf, just gluing only on the sides, make sure that the clean and tidy edge is faced outward so it doesn't look so rugged and messy. Now after you got everything done, here just seal off everything again. If you really want to, you could paint over again to make it look less homemade. And if you're someone who made 8 pieces, this is how the ladder effect will look. But I feel like that the open space makes it look a lot cuter and homemade, so here it is.